This is Dr. Mark Hitchcock here from Edmond, Oklahoma at Faith Bible Church, and I want to thank you for joining us for another episode of Marking the Times. My wife Cheryl and I just got back 4 days ago from a 2-week trip to Europe. I went over there to speak in Breckerfeld, Germany at the Bible Center there. My friend Johannes Vogel invited us to come over and spoke there it's called a Propheticon, or prophetic conference. It was about heaven and hell and the afterlife, and so we really enjoyed that. It was a great time of fellowship there with them. I spoke at the church they have there on the Sunday morning, and then we went from there over to Paris for a week and spent a week there. The whole trip was great, other than they lost our luggage on the way over, and so we spent about 3 or 4 days without our luggage. But other than that, it was a great trip, and we're glad to be back, though. And it's interesting when you travel like that, you're kind of exposed to a lot of different things, a lot of different thoughts. You see different countries, different cultures. We spent a week in Paris. During that time, we saw, of course, Notre Dame and what happened to that through the fire that was there. On June the 5th, we were able to go up to the Normandy area. So that was one day before the 75th anniversary of the Normandy invasion. We tried to get up there on the 6th. We wanted to go then, but no one was allowed. It was kind of cordoned off because of all the dignitaries that were there. We were there the day before that. And it's a fascinating day there with all the veterans that were there. There were tanks driving all over the place, jeeps, people parachuting in, planes flying overhead. It was really an incredible, somber time to memorialize what happened there 75 years ago. A lot of these veterans were there, and we had an opportunity to talk with many of them. So that was really the highlight of the trip. We saw a lot of other things, but one of the things that really struck me, though, during our time there and thinking about Normandy and, Hitler's domination of Europe during that time and, Operation Overlord, which came and really led ultimately to the end of the European theater of World War II. Thinking about these dictators, in Europe that have dominated that part of the world and really just been, vicious and cruel in their desire for power. And so while I was there, I purchased a book. There's a bookstore there in Paris called Shakespeare and Company, and evidently it's what's called kilometer zero in Paris. So anytime you have how many kilometers it is to Paris, it's actually to that spot where this bookstore is. So they'll stamp a book for you in the front, the name of their company, their Shakespeare and Company. But I bought a book while I was there on Napoleon, and there's a lot of books on Napoleon. In fact, in reading this book, I found out that there are more books written about Napoleon than any other person other than Jesus Christ. And when you think about Napoleon, some of you may not know much about him, but he dominated Europe for about 15 years. During those 15 years, about 5 million people died in Europe because of the Napoleonic Wars. But in reading this book, I ran across something that really just kind of sent a chill down my spine. And it talked about what was going on in France in the 1790s during the French Revolution. And the author of the book, Phil Johnson, he says this. He says that there was a constitutional beginning, reformist moderation was quickening into ever-increasing extremism, a descent into violence, a period of sheer terror ended by a violent reaction, a time of confusion, cross-currents, and chaos marked by growing exhaustion and disgust with change, and eventually an overwhelming demand for a man on horseback to restore order, regularity, and prosperity. That's a fascinating statement that the people in Europe at that time were looking for a man on horseback. And what that really means is a military ruler or leader. When I read that, I was struck by the thought that that's exactly what the Bible says is coming. Revelation chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, we have the first of the seal judgments, and it's the first of what's called the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, a rider on a white horse, a false or pseudo-Messiah, the Antichrist, who will ride into world history at the beginning of the tribulation period. And so when I read those words that they were waiting for a man on horseback, I thought, really that's what our world today is waiting for as well. A man on horseback, a man with a plan, someone who can come and restore order in a lot of the chaos that we see and that will increase as the coming of the Lord draws near. I thought I'd just read one statement that was really chilling from the book about Napoleon, because In a lot of ways, a man like Napoleon really is a foreshadow of the coming Antichrist. One lady who met Napoleon and spent time with him said this: "I had the disturbing feeling that no emotion of the heart could ever reach him. He regards a human being like a fact or a thing, never as an equal person like himself. He neither hates nor loves. The force of his will resides in the imperturbable calculations of his egotism. He is a chess master whose opponents happen to be the rest of humanity." And so I think in a man like Napoleon, we really see a foreshadow of this final ultimate world ruler who's coming. And men like Napoleon and Hitler and others who've risen in world history are kind of faint foreshadows of what this one will be like. And again, his rise may be soon. It will happen sometime after the rapture of the church takes place. What I want to do the next couple of weeks with you, Lord willing, if there's some big breaking prophetic news, we'll deal with that. But my new book is called Heavenly Rewards. It's scheduled to come out on July the 16th. I've got an advanced copy of it here. And what I'd like to do the next maybe 2 or 3 weeks leading up to the release of the book is answer some questions and some issues I've discussed in this book about rewards in heaven. It's a subject I think everybody's interested in. So I hope to answer some questions in this book. And if you want to pre-order a copy of it, you can get on Amazon and do that. And they should have it to you fairly quickly. But anyway, thank you for joining us again for another episode of Marking the Times. Hope you have a great week. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.